Hello again, everyone. This is Chris Scher, and that is Robert Harding. And this is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Thursday, May 12th, 2016. There we go. I got the date right. How about that?
Very good.
It's not always a sure thing that I get the date right. I've messed it up a few times.
Not always a sure thing. Oh.
So we're back with another fun-filled video. And this week, what else are we going to talk about except Syracuse University? Of course, not the basketball team, not the football team, not the lacrosse team, not even the national champion cross-country team. No, we are talking the athletic department itself, as in regards to former athletic director Mark Coyle, who decided to bolt from the Cuse, not even a year after being officially named the Orange's athletic director for the greener pastures of Minnesota. He actually is going to the place that has worse winters than Syracuse. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, at least if you go from a temperature standpoint. You know, Syracuse may get more snow, but it's a lot colder in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You know. So, Robert, why don't you go give your take first about what you think about this whole thing going on with Syracuse and Mark Coyle.
I think it's all about the money.
It always is.
I took a look at the contract. Syracuse.com posted the details on their website. Real interesting stuff because Coyle was making, they think, somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $600,000 a year. Minnesota giving him $850,000 a year, incentives of up to $150,000. Do the math there. He'd be making close to double if he gets those incentives, and he gets some other perks too. And the big thing is that Minnesota, on top of giving him this deal, pays his buyout. Pays the $500,000 for the buyout. So, to me, just looking at his background and seeing that he has, history with the Minnesota Athletic Department, this job opens, it's probably something that, at that time when he was there, he viewed as, to borrow from Doug Marrone, his dream job. And so he decided that, he'd dance around, go to Boise, go to Syracuse, and then Minnesota comes open and takes it. And, it is about the money, but, when he's standing in Minnesota and talking about things like stability, you can't help but laugh.
I know, yeah.
I mean, it's a bit insulting to hear, someone in that position leave a school after less than a year and then go to Minnesota and talk about things like stability. Who are you trying to fool? And, the family reasons, that's garbage. I mean, if it was truly a family situation, like you're moving closer to home because someone's sick, I get it. But this was about the money. This was about, in his mind, moving closer to, where his family has roots, I suppose. So if that's his family reason, whatever, but really it boils down to the money. And, now Syracuse is in quite a tricky position.
Well, I don't completely agree with you on that one. I'll talk about Coyle's departure first, and then we'll talk about what's next for Syracuse second. But, I mean, look, like anybody else, we all get paid, okay? And this guy wanted a bigger payday, and you can't fault him for that. We all want to make more money. I think that's just human nature, okay? But on the other hand, there's this thing called ethics, okay? And when you sign a contract for a certain amount of time, and we all know in college sports and pro sports, contracts really don't mean much, that this, they can be broken pretty easily. But you felt that maybe this guy should have said, something, I just came here. I brought people with me from Idaho, from Boise State. They're settling down. They're buying houses. I mean, I think one of his associate athletic directors just closed on a house recently. And those guys aren't making the big bucks, okay? So I think you owe Syracuse some loyalty. And if Minnesota contacted him and said, like, look, we know you have a record here and we know you like the place and are you interested in coming back, Coyle should have said, well, something, too bad you didn't contact me last year. Because maybe we could have done something, but I just came here, I brought people here, in good conscience, I can't just leave if they're just starting this job, no matter how much the money is, okay? But, because when you're making $500,000 a year, I mean, that's still pretty good living in this area, okay?
Sure.
And $850, yes, that's a huge pay raise, it's a gigantic pay raise. And again, I don't begrudge the guy going for money, although he never really said it, but like I said, I think you owe Syracuse a certain amount of time in the job. You just don't start a job and then leave a few weeks later or a few months later. Okay, so I just think that it kind of stinks from that standpoint, from an ethics standpoint. But I mean, this is major college sports, and we've seen coaches leave, from one job to another, and it happens. So why should we be surprised when it's an athletic director? It doesn't surprise me. So, and the thing is, we don't know really what we lost because, again, except for the football coach, Dino Babers, who I did touch upon that in my column in today's Citizen, auburnpub.com. I mean, he didn't really have much of an impact here. I mean,
Right.
He'd only hired one coach. He didn't really do anything that you could say this is going to have a long-term positive effect on Syracuse University sports. He just didn't have enough time. So the question is, for Syracuse now, do they want to promote from within? Do they want to have a brand new search, start from scratch? They would use a headhunting firm and interview a ton of people and go through a long, drawn-out search like they did when they found Coyle. Or like I said, promoting from within. I mean, I think, depending on what they want to do, will determine what way they go. Because I think that in a situation right now where it's May, things are going for the fall already, maybe it's smart to promote somebody from within. You like to think there are qualified people at Syracuse. There should be. I mean, you really should be qualified people at Syracuse to be an athletic director. So, like I said, it's definitely not a great situation. But on the other hand, it's the athletic director. You have your football coach, you have your basketball coach. The big positions, those are filled, and like I said, we'll see what happens. But Syracuse shouldn't overreact either. I think they just need to say, okay, this is where we are, this is where we want to be, and this is how we're going to get there.
Yeah. Well, the reason, to go back to what I was saying, the reason I think it's a tricky position for them is the timing. That this comes in, and you have Dino Babers, for example, who hasn't coached a single game for Syracuse, and now I mean, what's his feeling?
Yeah.
What's going through his mind now that the guy that hired him is gone, and then you have the situation with some of the other programs. Certainly with the basketball program, both basketball programs, they have some stability there, but everyone's probably looking at it and saying, okay, well, we were just getting used to this guy's kind of philosophy and administrative approach. Now, where do we go from here? And so, it creates something that you never want, which is uncertainty. Who's going to come in and fill that role? And it's kind of a tough situation to be in because you say, okay, do they go the search route? Do they get the committee? Do they spend the money? Well, you've already done that, and what did it get you? So, I mean, I think what it boils down to is, and I really feel bad for the next person that comes in because I think Syracuse will want, some tighter provisions in the contract that says, look, you ain't leaving, basically.
Yeah,
you're gonna fulfill your contract, or if something happens before then. But none of this opt-out business. I mean, I guess there was a clause that let him escape. And he had to pay the buyout back, but
and again,
but that was covered for
right.
him, so.
Syracuse is getting $500K from Minnesota, so I'm not gonna rip on Minnesota because Minnesota is a Big Ten school. I don't know enough about it as an academic institution or what the people are like or whatever, but I mean Minnesota, athletically is not a good school. Okay. They have not had a real good competitive football team in decades. Okay, they've had some hit and miss years, and I know they changed coaches recently. Jerry Kill resigned recently, and they hired a new coach. Okay, and neither is Syracuse really. Okay, let's be honest with that. But if you look at basketball, lacrosse, Syracuse basketball compared to Minnesota basketball, come on, it's not even a contest. Rich Pitino's kid is the coach there, and he's on thin ice if he doesn't do well because supposedly he was using all this travel money and everything, so he's under pressure now. And if you look at athletic departments as a whole, I think Syracuse is better than Minnesota. And I'm not trying to knock Minnesota, I'm just being honest here. If you're going to compare Syracuse to like Ohio State or Michigan, then it's no contest. Those schools are better than Syracuse, obviously. But if you look at Syracuse versus Minnesota, Syracuse is a much better school from top to bottom. So, again, money is one thing, family's another, but still. Now, Syracuse, again, they could go many different ways. They could promote from within. They could do a search. And if they do a search, there's one person that I don't know whether he would be interested, and I told Robert about this earlier, but I think a great candidate for this job. I'm not saying that he would be the perfect candidate or he would be the best candidate, but I think a guy that could be a good candidate if he was interested is a person that graduated from Auburn High School the year before I did. He graduated in 1984. His name's Bill Smith. And if you're from Auburn and you grew up in Auburn in the 80s, you know who Bill Smith is. Bill Smith is an excellent football player from Auburn High School. He played football at Colgate, okay? And as you know, Colgate's a pretty darn good school. So he graduated from Colgate and then went to law school, okay, and has a law degree. And he has worked his way up the athletic director, chain of command, so to speak, where he's worked at Iowa State, he's worked at Quinnipiac, and now he's at Bryant College in Rhode Island. And Bryant obviously is not exactly a school that everybody knows. It's not in a big conference or anything like that. But Bill has worked at Iowa State as a director of compliance and associate athletic director, so he does have experience working for a major Division I school. Obviously, he has roots here and ties here, so I don't think he'd be the kind of guy that'd be looking to bail in a couple of years. But not knowing what Syracuse wants to do and the other candidates that could be in the running, not knowing that, it's tough to say. Like, yeah, Bill would be great for this job. I think he would be great for this job, and it'd be kind of interesting if he would actually throw his hat in the ring. But again, you're talking about a guy who grew up in Auburn. And even though he has no ties to Syracuse, he does have ties to the Syracuse area. And I think he would be a credible candidate and a good candidate. But again, not knowing what Syracuse wants to do, whether promoting from within or hiring someone who already is at a major college like another ACC school or another major Division I school, we don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the promoting from within thing, I mean, you have some of these guys who... came in with Coyle, are any of them, kind of looking at it and saying, well, if he's going to bail and leave me behind, I'm going to set my own path. Yeah. Which is probably the smart thing to do given this guy's track record. So, that could be an option. I think, personally, if it's me, I say, well, maybe you do the national search thing again, see what pool of candidates are out there, include the people that you have in-house, kind of balance the two. Like, maybe don't go full-blown into the national search, but, at least see, what pool of candidates you can put together. I'm assuming that, a lot of the people that they may have been looking at last year around the time when they were looking at Coyle have either found jobs or, maybe some of them are still available. Who knows?
But I was just going to say is that you look at maybe you look at number 2 finalists, number 3 finalists, number 4 finalists, and depending if they're an athletic director someplace, Syracuse could do the same thing in Minnesota and just pluck somebody from another school that's already an athletic director.
It's true.
Okay, they could do the same thing. But not knowing who the people are, they may still be at associate athletic director someplace, and you don't begrudge someone a promotion, obviously. Right. So Syracuse could say, okay, we're going to re-interview candidates, finalists number 2, 3, and 4 from last year, and maybe there's some other people from within that we're going to look at, and we're going to do it that way. Because you've already done a lot of the legwork from last year. That realistically, I don't think you got to start from square one, but again, Syracuse might decide to do that after all. So
yeah.
All right.
Here's a kind of the conspiracy theory segment part. What do you think is the reason Coyle left?
Money. I think it's money.
You think it's money?
I think maybe there could have been.
You don't think there was any inner workings?
There's always that possibility that maybe he didn't have the full reign that he wanted. You know what I mean? The full extent of the power that he wanted. I don't know that. I mean, I'm just speculating. There could have been something else. Maybe he just got here and he realized, something. This isn't the place for me. I want to be someplace else, and this isn't the place for me, and I made a mistake. I mean, look, people take jobs and then realize, hey, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have taken this job. I need to get out of here. Maybe that's the case. And again, you can't really begrudge the guy for that. It's just human nature. But like I said, on the other hand, you got a contract. You're getting paid $500,000 a year. You kind of owe your employer at least some time before you decide to bail. And not even a year is unfortunately not enough time. So
yeah, I do wonder how much of an impact Syracuse's status as, really a basketball school had to do with it. Because if you look at, he was at Boise State for a while. Boise State, football school. not really known for their basketball or, many other sports. Minnesota, more of a football school.
Literally.
They have a basketball program that's had some success in the past, but, when you think of Minnesota, they've had some good football teams in the past, So, that to me, kind of entered my mind. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe he, saw the lay of the land, and obviously he brought in Dino Babers. And
well, that's the thing. He hired. I mean, he did have the final say on the football coach. He picked Babers. So I mean, he definitely was in charge of the football program. Look, he got rid of Scott Schaefer. Schaefer was over for 3 seasons?
Right.
13, 14, and 15. I mean, he didn't say, something, you've only had 3 years, you haven't even had a full recruiting class of 4 years, maybe I need to see a little bit more before I make a decision. He just said, okay, 1 year, I've seen enough, I'm going in a different direction here. So he definitely had the authority over the football part of things. And I don't think he really was worried about basketball because again, you got Jim Boeheim there. You got a team that made the Final Four. Quentin Hillsman, that's really the thing I'm worried about because Hillsman did sign a contract extension last year, but we don't know what he's getting paid, okay? And we don't know how long that contract extension's for. If I'm the new athletic director at Syracuse, the first thing I'm doing is getting Quentin Hillsman on the phone saying, all right, we need to talk another extension and we need to give you a raise to keep you here. Because obviously what Hillsman has done at Syracuse is nothing short of a miracle. And this guy...
He built a program.
He did. And it took him 10 years to do it. And, there's other schools out there that can pay him a lot more. So, and I don't think there's any openings now. I think everything is done for the year. No one's going to get rid of a women's basketball coach in May or June. But, next season, somebody could come calling. And that's why whoever is hired in the near future or whenever has to get on the phone with Hillsman and say, okay, we're going to give you a raise. We're going to give you more time, more money, and longer contracts. So,
it's
that's number one priority in my opinion is getting Hillsman long term. The dome stuff, that can has been kicked down the road so often that it can keep on getting kicked unless the carrier dome is falling apart and there's holes in the roof or something. That facility, even though it's not ideal for what we think of today is for stadium for today. It is a suitable stadium to play your games in. You're just not making as much revenue as you could with the new place, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because obviously new AD coming in again, that person will have to address these issues, coaches and programs and the state of facilities and things like that, and again, it goes back to stability.
Yeah,
it's
to
important. Use
Use
Mark Coyle's own words, and you need an AD who can come in and provide that stability. With some programs, obviously, more so than others, but being able to handle really the business side is a big deal. And right now, the Syracuse University athletics program, I'm sure has people in place who can handle it short term, but you need a long term leader there. And they're back to the search again. So,
anything else you want to add?
I'm good.
Hey, we're done, folks. Hey, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like it, don't be shy. Share the link, and we appreciate you watching, and we will see you next week.